Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. All right, BYU basketball has got a lot of eyeballs on it, and it's for good reason. Kevin Young came in and was just an absolute revelation on the recruiting trail and re-energizing a basketball community that didn't really need a ton of re-energizing, but kind of felt down on itself when Mark Pope left for the Kentucky job. Well, Kevin Young has come in, and I think it's been just absolutely incredible to watch the transformation that he's had with the BYU basketball program to this point. Well, one kid who I think is absolutely going to raise the profile of BYU as the season progresses is Egor Demin. And that's very, very easy to say. That's low-hanging fruit. But the bigger question is, and I'm going to get to a Locked On Cougars insider group mailbag here in just a moment, but there was a question that came in on it, and I apologize. I'm trying to find it on the fly here. Oh, there it goes. Jared Christensen. What do you think about Egor Demin's rapid rise on draft boards? Well, my honest answer is it's awesome. Now, I know that you as a fan, having the thought of having a one and done guy come to BYU and then 6, 7, 8 months later, all of a sudden he is out the door and on his way to the NBA draft. Yeah, that can sting a little bit, but watch what Egor Demin is doing. He just won his second straight Newcomer of the Week award in the Big 12 Conference for his performances against Queens and also Idaho last week. And he wasn't even the star in that Idaho game. That was Fousseyni Traore and Richie Saunders. But his numbers, speaking of Egor Demin, absolutely incredible. Now, there are a lot of analysts out there who are breaking down the NBA draft 24/7. One of my favorite is NBA Big Board. Now, some of you know Chad Ford, former ESPN NBA analyst. He started his own publication called NBA Big Board, and then a couple of years ago, if I recall correctly on the timeline, he handed it over to a guy named Rafael Barlow, who has just picked up the baton and absolutely been carrying it forward. And he wrote a piece just yesterday about guys who are hot and guys who are not in the NBA draft circles right now. One of the guys on his hot list was Egor Demin. He had this to say about Egor Demin. He says, Egor Demin has become the talk of college basketball circles with his incredible start to the season. And the big question is, how high can he go in the 2025 NBA draft? Some scouts believe the 6'9" BYU forward, I'd say he's more of a guard, could land in the top 5, while others think his unique blend of positional size, playmaking, and skill could push him into the top 3. Remember, Cooper Flagg is far and away considered to be the top prospect in this draft. A lot of people tell you that Ace Bailey is right there with Cooper Flagg. Is Egor Demin the third guy in a top 3 that could be, as some consider them, generational type prospects? Are we watching a guy who's going to take the NBA by storm for years to come right before our very eyes as Cougar fans here in Provo at the Marriott Center? Sure seems that way. Now, as this continues, I also mentioned that through 4 games, Demin showcases all-around talent, averaging 17 points, 7.5 assists, and 3.5 rebounds per game, while shooting an astounding 63% of the floor from the floor and 55% from 3. They do point out that his free throw shooting is just 5 of 10, so 50%. That's got to improve. And they also acknowledge the fact that BYU's beaten 4 dogs. And it's no offense to the Central Arkansas, to Queens, UC Riverside, or Idaho. But BYU, as Raphael says here, the first test is going to come next week when they take on Ole Miss, who's a top 25 team. They says that NBA scouts will have that circled on their calendars. Before then, Demin has one more tune-up game against a struggling Mississippi Valley State team. But he says that Egor's early season performances have been eye-opening, though several scouts are reserving judgment until he faces tougher opponents. The upcoming Ole Miss game on Thanksgiving will give a better gauge of where he stands truly as a prospect, unquote. Hey, I'll take any and all chatter about Egor Demin right now. This is a young man who I think has the capability of really kind of transforming the perception of BYU basketball in this day and age. Kevin Young's doing that himself. He has made it very clear that he intends to make BYU an NBA factory. If guys want to go and play in the league, he's going to leverage his experience in the NBA and say, hey, I've coached some of the best players in that league. Let me help you at this level, get you to that level, and set you up for success when you reach said level. If Egor Demin can go out there and become the type of guy that, as Rafael Barlow notes, could be a top 3 NBA draft pick in next year's NBA draft, that is going to shine a very, very bright light and a positive light on BYU, A, as a basketball program, and B, as a preparation area for NBA draft hopefuls. There's a lot of chatter about AJ Dybantsa coming to BYU, and the chatter only gets louder and louder by the day. I think Dybantsa would do well to pay attention to the rise of Egor Demin and look at it and say, okay, I'm considered to be more of the Cooper Flag type of a pick in the 2026 draft because he's a year away. But if a guy like Egor Demin can go and be a top 5, if not a top 3 pick, AJ Dybantsa is going to be thinking, all right, BYU is backing up what they have been selling me, telling me that they can get me to where I want to go. And Dybantsa was at the game against Idaho on Saturday, watching Egor Demin, watching Richie Saunders, Fousseyni Traore, and the rest of the crew do their thing against the Idaho Vandals. The nice part is, yeah, there's going to be a test against Ole Miss coming up. And there's also, I'm trying to remember who the other teams they could play down there in San Diego. And then you also have to travel across the country to Rhode Island to take on Providence that following week. There's a 3-game kind of series here in the non-conference slate that is going to be very, very interesting to watch how Egor Demin and the rest of the BYU basketball responds. If he flies high and absolutely shows that he's capable of doing that against so-called better opposition, guess what? I'm fully expecting guys like Rafael Barlow, Jonathan Givoni, insert anybody out there, Mike Babcock, all of these different guys who break down the draft to write even more and more positive and praiseworthy articles about what Egor Demin could do. And that only helps BYU's status as a flourishing place for college basketball and NBA draft-like talent to come and play. I'm looking forward to this. It's been a really fun basketball season already. I know that a lot of you are locked down on football. I get all that. But basketball, it's only going to get better from here because the eyeballs only are going to get larger. We've already seen multiple NBA scouts come through. I think they said a couple of games ago, more than 70 NBA scouts have already visited BYU throughout the offseason and the early goings of this season to check out Egor Demin. And I think also by extension, Kanon Catchings, as well as Mihailo Boskovic and anybody else they may have their eye on from this BYU roster. And the nice part is if you may be a fringe guy who has hopes of playing professional basketball, let's say a Fousseyni Traore, who's a senior this year, or a Richie Saunders, well, guess what? When those scouts show up and maybe you go off in a practice, they're going to write your name in that little book of theirs and say, file that away for future reference. And they'll watch the game, see if it compares with what they saw in practice. And that could open some doors for you professionally. All of this with what Egor Demin is bringing, the attention he is drawing to Brigham Young University and the Marriott Center, that only helps the entirety of the program. And by extension, hopefully helps BYU go out and land what could be the best prospect. No, it's not. It could be. It will be the best prospect in NBA history in AJ Dybantsa. But good things are afoot for BYU basketball, and it sure feels like things are on an up and up trajectory for Kevin Young, Egor Demin, and the rest of the BYU Hoops program. So really cool to see that, and hopefully that answers your question, Jared. It's fun to see it. I hope it continues. I hope that Egor flies up those draft charts and shows what he's capable of, because I'm telling you, what I've seen with my own eyes, and I don't aspire to say that I'm any type of expert, I am watching what I feel like is a guy who could dominate in the NBA for the next 10 years minimum. He just looks the part of the modern swing / off-ball guard who can still handle the ball and just play make all over the court. That's what it feels like Egor Demin is, and BYU is going to be the beneficiary of that for at least this season.